നാരായണാഖിലഗുരോ ഭഗവൻ നമസ്തേ. Guruvayurappa. Good morning and welcome to everyone. Today we are continuing our Narayaneeyam series. This is our 9th session and we will be discussing Dashakam 5. We have been discussing Dashakam 5 in the last session. We completed up to sloga number 4 and we will be continuing from there. So before we start the session, we will have a small invocation.
Krishna Guruvayurappa Sharanam Gajananam Bhutaganadisevitam Kapitthajambu Phalasarabhakshitam Umasutam Shokavinashakaranam Namami Vikhneshwara Pankajam Shuklambaradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanavadanam Dhyayet Sarvaviknopashantaye. Krishna Guruvayurappa Sharanam.
Can you see the screen? Slides?
Yes.
So we are continuing our discussion on Dashakam 5. If you remember, in Dashakam 5, Bhattathiri is talking about dissolution, the Pralaya period. So he discussed how the Pralaya happened. This was from Dashakam 4, where he spoke about yoga, and then he continued about Pralaya. And in Dashakam 5, Bhattathiri spoke about what happens after Pralaya, how creation happened, how Bhagavan created this universe, and whatever we see around. That is what Bhattathiri was discussing in Dashakam 5. So we discussed within that we discussed some of the details of the creation process, and we will quickly go back to what we where we stopped from last session. Essentially, the focus in this dashakam is to understand that whatever we see around, whatever we see around as creation, what all the beings that we see around, all the experiences that we have, they are nothing but Bhagavan only. That is the key point from this Dashakam. That is Bhagavan Swarupam. Whatever we see around is Bhagavan Swarupam. That is the key message in Dashakam 5. And Bhattathiri in sloga number 4, he spoke about the creation. So we'll look at the creation process once again, where Bhattathiri spoke about how creation started from Narayana. So during the time of creation, it was only Narayana. He is the essence of everything. So Bhagavan alone existed at that time after Pralaya, and this is before creation. From Narayana, his own Maya was activated. Maya is Bhagavan only. We discussed this in detail in our last session. Maya is represented by the universe as Lakshmi Devi, and and Maya is nothing but the Bhagavan only. But Bhagavan is not attached to that Maya. And from Bhagavan's Maya came Kala Shakti, Karma, and the Vasanas. So these are the three things that came from Bhagavan's Maya with Bhagavan's intention. These three, Kala Shakti, Karma, and Vasana, they activated the gunas, that is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, the gunas get activated, and they will be in different proportion. And these gunas, they create the Mula Prakriti, the universe that we see around. So Mula Prakriti is the universe, and Prakriti is essentially Lakshmi Devi. So the universe is created, and from this universe comes this is where we stopped, comes Buddhi-tattvam or Mahat-Tattvam. Buddhi-tattvam is the intelligence that we see in all beings, that is Buddhi-tattvam. So Buddhi-tattvam came. And from now, in the next slogas of Dashakam 5, Bhattathiri is talking about how this universe has formed from Buddhi-tattvam, and what was the next steps in the creation process, which involves looking at all the Pancha Bhutas and Pancha Tanmatras, which we will see in the next couple of slogans. So we stopped till here in our last session, and we will continue from sloga 5.
तत्रासौ त्रिगुणात्मकोऽपि च महान् सत्त्वप्रधानः स्वयं जीवेऽस्मिन् खलु निर्विकल्पमहमित्युद्बोध निष्पादकः चक्रेऽस्मिन् सविकल्पबोधकमहं तत्त्वं महान् खल्वसौ सम्पुष्टं त्रिगुणैस्तमोतिबहुलं विष्णो भवत्प्रेरणात्. അതിൽ മായാകാര്യങ്ങളിൽ ഈ മഹത്തത്വമാകട്ടെ സത്വരജസ് തമസുകൾ ചേർന്നതാണെങ്കിലും സത്വഗുണ പ്രധാനവുമായിട്ട് ഈ ജീവങ്കൽ അത് ഇത് എന്ന വികല്പമില്ലാത്ത ഞാൻ എന്ന ഒരു തോന്നലിനെ സ്വയമേ ഉളവാക്കുന്നു അത്രേ. ഈ മഹത്തത്വം തന്നെ ഹേ വിഷ്ണു അവിടുത്തെ പ്രേരണ ഹേതുവായിട്ട് ഈ ജീവങ്കൽ ത്രിഗുണങ്ങൾ നന്നായി തികഞ്ഞതും എന്നാൽ തമോ ഗുണത്തിന് ആധിക്യമുള്ളതും മുൻപറഞ്ഞ വികൽപ്പത്തിന്റെ ബോധമുളവാക്കുന്നതുമായ അഹങ്കാരം എന്ന തത്വത്തെ സൃഷ്ടിച്ചു.
So Bhattathiri is continuing on the creation process. He says, Tatra, there, that is among the effects of Maya. So whatever we just saw, they are all originating from Maya, which is Bhagavan's own power. Bhagavan's own Shakti is Maya. So he says, Tatra, Asaucha Mahan, that Tattvam that just came, that is Mahat-Tattvam, which is the Buddhi Tattvam that just originated from Bhagavan's own Maya, that Buddhi Tattvam. Trigunatmagah Abhi, it is composed of the three gunas. That Mahat-Tattvam is composed of the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. However, Sattva Pradana Swayam. However, this Mahat-Tattvam is mostly or predominantly made of Sattva Guna. So this Mahat-Tattvam or the Buddhi Tattvam is predominant of Sattva Guna. So Sattva Guna will be in higher proportion compared to Rajas and Tamas in Buddhi Tattvam. So that is the nature of Mahat-Tattvam. So Mahat-Tattvam or the Buddhi Tattvam, which is the cosmic intelligence, that the intelligence in all beings is predominant of Sattva, Sattvic in nature. And from that Mahat-Tattvam, Bhattathiri continues, comes Nirvikalpam Aham Idi. Jive Asmin Nirvikalpam Aham Idi. So for the collective Jiva, for all of us, every individual being, there is a sense of I in us, right? So the first, from the Mahat-Tattvam with Sattva in predominance comes the total I sense, the absolute I sense. That is called the total I sense or the absolute I sense, which is the sense of knowing that whatever we see around is Bhagavan only. That sense that we have, that is what we want to achieve also, that comes from the Mahat-Tattvam. So what Bhattathiri is saying is that Jive Asmin Nirvikalpam Aham Idi Udbodha Nishpadaga Kalu. So first what comes is this sense of total I. This is not the individual I, this is the total I. So in this there is no differentiation between this and that, you and me and all that. All of us are one. That sense comes from Buddhi Tattvam. That is the total I sense. I is our own oneness, right? So I is that our own feeling that we are this universe, we are Bhagavan. That sense comes from that Mahat-Tattvam. So it is like this. So imagine, so we see the universe and we understand that we are part of the universe and all of this is one Bhagavan only. That feeling comes from this Mahat-Tattvam. That is the total I sense, which is the absolute I. So as I showed in the previous image, everything, every being that we see around, every experience that we see around, they are all Guruvayurappan. That feeling that we have in us, that is the absolute I sense. So the first what comes is that from the Sattva aspect of Mahat-Tattvam comes this total absolute I. And that is called Samashti Jivan. That kind of Jivatmas that are created, or that feeling in Jivas, that is called Samashti. Samashti means the focus is on the whole. It is not on the individual. It is the focus is on the whole. That means we imagining that the universe and everything that we see around is connected and is Bhagavan Narayana himself. That feeling is called Samashti Bhavam, and that is generated in all the beings, or that Bhavam is originated now from Sattva. And that Bodham is called Nirvikalpa Bodham. So there is no Vigalpam in that kind of Bodham. There is no doubt. We all know that we are Bhagavan. That Bodham is called Nirvikalpa Bodham. Remember when we discussed yoga, we said about Nirvikalpa Samadhi, that state. That is called Nirvikalpa Bodham. That originates from the Mahat-Tattvam. So as an example of Samashti, example is that imagine that we are looking at several trees in a forest. So considering not any individual tree, considering the whole forest, that feeling is called Samashti. Now we are not focusing on the individual, you are focusing on the group or the entirety, the whole. That bhavana is called Samashti bhavana or Samashti Jivan. But if you are focusing on the individual, that is called Vyashti Jivan or Vyashti bhavana or Vyashti sense. So here we are talking about Samashti. So first what comes from Mahat-Tattvam is from its Sattva, because Mahat-Tattvam is mostly made of Sattva. From that Sattva element comes this absolute essence. Then Bhattacharya further continues. Hey Vishnu, O all-pervading Lord, Bhagavan, Asau Mahan Kalu, from that same Mahat, we just discussed, from Mahat comes the absolute essence. From that same Mahat, with your intention, Bhavat Prayaranat, but with your prompting, with Bhagavan's prompting, Narayana's prompting, Asmin, in this Jiva, comes Trigunaihi Sampushtam, though having all the three gunas in full measure, even though this Mahat-Tattvam has three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, now with Bhagavan's prompting, what happens is, Tamaha Adibahulam, with Tamas as domination. Now with Tamas in predominance, what happens is another kind of bodham comes, which is called the Savikalpa Bodham, causing the awareness of separate individuality. So first what came with Mahat-Tattvam is predominant of Sattva. From that Mahat-Tattvam with Sattva in predominance came the bhavana of absolute essence, total essence. Now with Bhagavan's prompting, with Tamas is in predominance, came this individual awareness. This is called the Ahamkara Tattvam. It's also Aham Tattvam. So now comes Aham Tattvam, which is Ahamkara, which is ego. Now here the Ahamkara is not the Ahamkara that we use in our general sense. And it is not Ahamkara like we say, right? This person has so much Ahamkara. That is not the Ahamkara that we talk, that is being mentioned here. The Ahamkara here or ego that is mentioned is there in all of us. This is the I sense, the individual sense. When we say that I am this person or this is my job, that is our Ahamkara. That is our sense of our individuality, which is there in all creation. So Aham Tattvam, Ahamkara, which is the particularized essence that makes one aware of one's distinct individuality. So this Aham Tattvam is what makes me, what makes each of us our own unique character or our own unique, we say this is my family, this is my home, this is my occupation, right? So all that we say about ourselves, that comes from this Aham Tattvam, Ahamkara. So from with Tamas in predominance comes this Aham Tattvam or Ahamkara, which is your particularized I sense, which is the one that makes one aware of their own individuality, their own species, their own status, their own relationships. That's all defined by this Aham Tattvam Chakra that is created. So two Tattvams are created. First is the absolute essence that is coming from the Sattva aspect of Mahat-Tattvam. Now with Bhagavan's own prompting, with Tamas in predominance comes the Aham Tattvam, Ahamkara. Aham Tattvam is the one that makes individual behaviors. And that is called Vyashti Jivan. So the other one was Samashti Jivan, which is looking at the whole picture, looking at the whole world as Narayana. This is Vyashti Jivan, where the focus is on the individual. This is called Savikalpa Bodham. The previous one was Nirvikalpa Bodham. This is called Savikalpa Bodham. So now, Bhattacharya is saying that from Mahat-Tattvam with Tamas in predominance came Ahamkara, ego, that is the individualized I sense. Now going to sloga number 6, where Bhattacharya continues on what comes after that.
Soham cha triguna kramatrividhatam asadya vaikarigo भूयस्तैजसतामसा विधिभवन्नाद्येन सत्त्वात्मना देवानिन्द्रियमानिनो कृददिशावादार्कपाश्यश्विनो वह्नीन्द्राच्युतमित्रकान् विधुविधि ശ്രീരുദ്രശാരീരകാൻ. ആ അഹങ്കാരമാകട്ടെ സത്വരജസ് തമസ്സുകളുടെ ക്രമമനുസരിച്ച് 3 വിധത്തിലാവുക എന്ന അവസ്ഥയെ പ്രാപിച്ച് വൈകാരികവും പിന്നെ തൈജസ താമസങ്ങളും എന്ന സംജ്ഞകൾ ഉള്ളതായി തീർന്നു. അവയിൽ ആദ്യത്തേതായ സാത്വികം കൊണ്ട് ദിക്ക്, വായു, ആദിത്യൻ, വരുണൻ, അശ്വിനി ദേവന്മാർ എന്നിവരും അഗ്നി, ഇന്ദ്രൻ, ഉപേന്ദ്രൻ, മിത്രൻ, പ്രജാപതി എന്നിവരും ചന്ദ്രൻ, ചതുർമുഖൻ, രുദ്രൻ, ക്ഷേത്രജ്ഞൻ എന്നിവരുമായ ഇന്ദ്രിയങ്ങളുടെ അധിഷ്ഠാതാക്കൾ എന്നഭിമാനിക്കുന്ന ദേവന്മാരെ സൃഷ്ടിച്ചു.
So Bhattacharya continues. So we just said that once again, starting from Narayana, Bhagavan's own Maya, came the Mula Prakriti. From the Mula Prakriti came Mahat-Tattvam. Mahat-Tattvam is predominant of Sattva. That from that Sattva element of Mahat-Tattvam came the absolute essence, where we understand that we are that Bhagavan, the Narayana, that is our absolute essence. Then with Tamas in predominance came individualized essence, which is the Ahamkara or ego. Okay. Now Bhattacharya says that Ahamkara, sa ahamcha, that Ahamkara that was now created, Triguna kramat, in accordance with the three gunas. We have the Sattva Guna, Rajas and Tamas. These are our three gunas, which is there in the universe, which is there in every being. This Ahamkara, Trividadam asadya, becoming divided into three. So this Ahamkara that was just created now gets divided into three. First one is Vaigarikaha, which is the sattvic part of Ahamkara. So the Sattva element of Ahamkara gets Ahamkara gets divided into its Sattva aspect, which is called Vaigarika. So basically Ahamkara plus Sattva, that is called Vaigarika, which is called Sattvika Ahamkara. So Ahamkara is there in all beings. That Ahamkara now gets combined or gets divided with Sattva and is known as Vaigarika. Vaigarika is Sattvika Ahamkara. Ahamkara plus Sattva creates Sattvika Ahamkara, which is called Vaigarika. Then it creates Bhuya Taijasa Tamasau. Further, now after that it further divides into Taijasa. Taijasa is Ahamkara dividing with Rajas, with respect to its Rajas element or Rajas aspect, that is called Taijasa. So Ahamkara plus Rajas forms Taijasa, which is Rajasic Ahamkara. Then it also divides into Tamasa. Tamasa is Ahamkara plus Tamas. Ahamkara dividing with Tamas, forming Tamasic Ahamkara, which is called Tamasa. So basically this Ahamkara gets divided into three, which are Vaigarika, Taijasa and Tamasa. Vaigarika is Sattvika Ahamkara, Taijasa is Rajasic Ahamkara, and Tamasa is Tamasic Ahamkara. So three of these Ahamkaras are created with respect to the three gunas. Now Bhattacharya continues, and how each of these Ahamkaras creates the next process or the next beings in the universe. He is talking about it. Idhi Bhavan, becoming, being called by forming these three Ahamkaras. Adyena Sattva Atmana, by means of the first one, which is Sattvic, by means of the first one, which is the Sattvika Ahamkara, which is Vaigarika, Bhagavan now creates Devan Indriya Maninaha Agrada. So he creates the gods, he creates the Devas who preside over our Karmendriyas and Jnanendriyas and our Antakarana. So basically Narayana Bhagavan creates the gods or the Devas who preside over our sense organs or the organs of knowledge, which are our Jnanendriyas. Then we have our organs of action, which are our 5 Karmendriyas. And we also have an Antakarana. We have discussed each of these in our Dashakam 4. If everyone remembers, we discussed Jnanendriyas, Karmendriyas and our Antakarana. Antakarana is our inner instruments, 4 inner instruments, which are Manas, Buddhi, Chitta and Ahamkara. Manas is our subjective mind, or objective mind, the mind that gets information. Buddhi or intellect is our subjective mind that does reasoning. Chitta is our memory, all the impressions that we have in us, and Ahamkara is the ego. So we discussed this in Dashakam 4. So now it is not the organs that are being created, it is Bhagavan is creating the gods, the Devas who preside over these organs. So Bhagavan with Sattvik Ahamkara, with Sattvika Ahamkara, which is Vaigarika, Bhagavan creates the gods, the presiding gods or presiding Devas for our 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas and 4 Antakarana. So Bhattacharya in this slogam is only talking about the gods, not about the Jnanendriyas, Karmendriyas or Antakarana, but I'm bringing them here so that we can understand it better when we go to the next sloga. So the presiding gods or devas for each of these, the 5 Jnanendriyas, the 5 Karmendriyas and the 4 Antakarana. So if you see in total, This is 5 plus 5, 10, and then 4 is 14. So the 14 gods that preside, or devas that preside on each of these are created next, and we'll talk about that. So who are these devas? And this from the Sattvika Ahamkara part of Ahamkara, which is Vaikarika. That is from where this is created. And which are these devas? Let's see who they are. Bhattathiri continues. Disha, Vada, Arka, Pashi, Ashwinaha. The devas, the first set of devas are the devas that preside over our 5 organs of knowledge, which is our Jnanendriyas. The first set of devas that are created are presiding over our 5 organs of knowledge, which are our Jnanendriyas, which we'll see what they are later. And these devas are Disha. Disha is Dik Devadas, the Devadas of directions. These are Disha. Vada is Vayudeva. Arka is Surya, Bhagavan Surya or Aditya, that is Arka. Pashi is Varuna Deva. Varuna Deva holds a pasham, which is a rope denoting control. That's why he's called Pashi. Varuna Deva and Ashwinaha. Ashwina is Ashwini Kumaras. So these devas are created by Bhagavan. So let's see what their role is. So Dik Devadas, we have, in general, we have 8 Dik Devadas denoting each direction, who preside over each directions. Again, as I said, here only the devas are mentioned in this loga, but there is only talking about the devas, but we will make the connection between devas and the organs here so that we can understand it better. So Dik Devadas, they preside over our Jnanendriya, which is ear. So the Dik Devadas preside over our Jnanendriya, which is ear. Ear is one of our Jnanendriyas, or the first Jnanendriya. The primary function of an ear is hearing. So they preside over the Jnanendriya ear, these Devadas. And this Jnanendriya ear, it is associated with the Tanmatra. We'll see that in the next slokas, but we'll just introduce it here so that we understand it better later. So it is associated with the Tanmatra. Tanmatra is the subtle essence. The subtle essence that defines that functionality. So the Tanmatra is Shabda. So once again, Dik Devadas, they are presiding over our Jnanendriya ear. The subtle essence associated with that is Shabda. And that is called a Tanmatra. And this Shabda Tanmatra is associated with a Mahabhuta, which is Agasha, which is space. So Agasha is the Mahabhuta. The Tanmatra associated with it is Shabda. The organ for that is ear, Jnanendriya, through which we sense information. And the Devadas that preside that are Dik Devadas. The Dik Devadas preside over these. The primary quality of this Mahabhuta, Agasha, or space, Agasha is space or ether, is sound. So space essentially denotes the infinite possibilities that we see around in the universe. That is what space technically represents here. And the subtle essence of that, the Tanmatra associated with that is Shabda. And the Devadas, we just said, are the Dik Devadas. Continuing, the next one is Vayudeva. Vayudeva presides over our Jnanendriya, which is skin. So Vayudeva is the presiding Deva for skin. The primary function for skin is feeling, right? And the Tanmatra, the subtle essence associated with that is touch or sparsha. So sparsha is the Tanmatra associated with skin. And the Deva for that is Vayu. The presiding Deva is Vayu. And this Tanmatra of sparsha is associated with the Mahabhuta of Vayu, which is air. Okay, so Vayu or air is denoting all activity. All the activity that we see around in the universe, that is represented by Vayu. So Vayu, once again, Vayu is the Mahabhuta, the subtle element, the Tanmatra, subtle essence of that Mahabhuta is sparsha. Sparsha is associated with our Jnanendriya, which is skin, and the Deva that preside it is Vayu. The primary quality of this Vayu is touch, but it also includes the primary quality of the previous element, which was so if you see, the previous element had the primary quality of sound, space had sound. So Vayu will have both touch and sound. So all the next ones will have the presiding quality as well. So Vayu has both touch and sound. Going on to the next one is Aditya or Surya. So Aditya Bhagavan or Surya Bhagavan is the presiding Deva for our Jnanendriya eye. The primary function of eye is seeing. The Tanmatra associated with eye is Rupa. The subtle essence is Rupa or form. And the Mahabhuta that is associated with that subtle essence of Rupa is Agni. Okay, Agni or Tejas. So once again, Agni is our Mahabhuta that is associated with the subtle essence of Rupa. The Jnanendriya that is associated with that is I, and the presiding deity for that is Aditya. Now, when we say Agni, Agni represents all types of transformation that happens in the universe that is represented by Agni. So it's not just fire. Even if you see every action that happens in us, like in our body also, there is a fire, right? Everything that is active and transforming, there is an inner fire. All of that is represented by Agni. And the primary quality of Agni is form. Form is the primary quality of Agni, which is Rupa, but it will also have the previous qualities, which includes touch and sound, which we had in the previous elements. Okay. Now, next Deva that was created is Varuna. Varuna Deva. Varuna Deva is also one of the Adityas. So there are 12 Adityas. Varuna Deva is one of the Adityas. And the Jnanendriya, that is Varuna Deva, preside over the Jnanendriya tongue. So Varuna Deva is a presiding deity for tongue. The primary function of tongue is tasting, and the Tanmatra associated with that is Rasa. Rasa or taste is the Tanmatra that is associated with that tongue. And the Mahabhuta that is associated with Rasa is up or Jala, water. So water, up, it is called up or Jala. Water is the Mahabhuta associated with Rasa. Again, when we say water, it is not just the water we see around. It is all forms of liquid, all forms of liquid in the universe, and it also represents the ability of the universe to integrate many things. So it represents flow. It represents the universe's ability to integrate many things. All that is represented by water. And the primary quality of that is taste. So once again, the primary quality of up is taste, and it also includes form, touch, and sound, which were coming from the previous elements. Okay, and the next one is Ashwini Kumaras. Ashwini Kumaras are the sons of, they are twins. They are the sons of Lord Surya and Sanjana. They are called Nasatya and Dasra. Their names are Nasatya and Dasra, and then they represent health and healing. So they are the devas for that. They preside over our Jnanendriya nose. So the Jnanendriya that they preside over is nose. The primary function of nose is smelling. The Tanmatra, the subtle essence associated with nose is Gandha, smell. And the Mahabhuta that is associated with that Tanmatra is the Prithvi Tattva. Again, Prithvi Tattvam is earth. It is not technically Bhumi, earth. It means all forms of matter, all forms that are created from the previous elements. All the previous elements combine together to form the gross elements that we see around. That is called the Prithvi Tattva. Okay. So once again, the Prithvi Tattvam is the Mahabhuta. The Tanmatra that is associated with that is Gandha, smell. The Jnanendriya that is associated with that is nose. And the Deva that preside over it is Ashwini Kumaras. And the primary quality of Prithvi Tattvam is smell, along with the others, which includes taste, form, touch, and sound. Okay. So basically, this is what Bhattathiri is going to describe in the next coming slokas. But in this sloka, Bhattathiri only spoke about the devas, the creation of these devas, Dik, Vayu, Aditya, Varuna, and Ashwini. They preside over our 5 organs of knowledge, which are the Jnanendriyas that we just saw. Further, Bhattathiri continues, the next set of devas that are created. He says, Vahini, Indra, Achyuta, and Mitragan. Vahini, Indra, Achyuta, Mitragan, which includes Vahini is Agni, Agni Deva. Indra is Indra Deva. Achyuta is Vishnu. Here it is not the, we should understand that it's not the Narayana that we talk about. The Vishnu here is the Amsha of Vishnu Bhagavan, who is one of the Adityas. So in the 12 Adityas, one of the Adityas is Vishnu, and it is an Amsha of Bhagavan Vishnu itself. And that is the Achyuta being referred here. So Vishnu is Achyuta, and he's also known as Ubendra. In some texts, he's referred to as Ubendra, as a brother of Indra. So that is one of the Adityas. And in some references, it is also associated with Trivikrama, Vamana Avadara, because Vamana Avadara is one of the is a son of Aditi, and the Adityas are also son of Aditi, so it's associated with Vamana Avadara also. Okay, so once again, Vahini, which is Agni, Indra, Achyuta, Mitra. Mitra is another Aditya, Mitra. Kan is Kaha. It's actually Mitra Kaha, Kan. Kaha is actually Prajapati. Prajapati is a form of Brahma, is associated with Brahma Deva. So these are the deities that preside over the 5 organs of action. The earlier one was the 5 organs of knowledge, which was Jnanendriya. These are the Karmendriyas. So the deities for the Karmendriyas are discussed now. The first one is Agni, Agni Deva. Agni Deva preside over the Karmendriya mouth. The primary function of mouth is speech. Next is Indra. Indra preside over the Karmendriya hands. The primary function for hands is dexterity. Vishnu or Achyuta or Ubendra. Vishnu, as I said, is an Amsha of Vishnu Bhagavan, who is an Aditya, one of the 12 Adityas. Vishnu Bhagavan here, Achyuta represents the Karmendriya or presides over the Karmendriya legs. And the primary function is locomotion. And next we have Mitra. Mitra is also one of the Adityas. Mitra preside over the Karmendriya anus or rectum. The primary function is excretion. And finally we have Prajapati. Prajapati is, as I said, is a form of Brahmadeva. It comes from Brahmadeva, and it's a title. It is a title that is given to these creations by Brahmadeva, who support in creation, in the creation process. And there are several of them, right? We have heard about Kardama Prajapati, Daksha Prajapati, several Prajapatis. Even Shiva is considered as a Prajapati. So these are all supporting Brahmadeva in creation. So Prajapati is the presiding Deva for Karmendriya genitals. And the primary function of genitals is reproduction. So these are our Karmendriyas, and the presiding Devas for that are Agni, Indra, Achyuta, Mitra, and Prajapati. Now they are created. And then Bhattacharya further continues. The next set of deities that are created, which includes Vidu, Vidhi, Sri Rudra, Shariragan. Next is Vidu is Chandra Deva, Chandra. Vidhi is Brahma. Sri Rudra is Bhagavan Shiva. And Shariragan is Kshetratnya. So we have Chandra Deva, who preside over our. So these 4 devas, Chandra, Brahma, Sri Rudra, and Kshetratnya, they preside over the Antakarana. Antakaranas are our 4 instruments, inner instruments. We saw that before. 4 inner instruments, which are Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, and Ahamkara. So Chandra Deva preside over our Manas or our mind. Brahma Deva preside over our Buddhi or our intellect. Sri Rudra, Bhagavan Shiva, preside over our Ahamkara or ego. And Kshetratnya is our own consciousness, preside over our Chitta or our memory, our impressions. So Bhattacharya is describing the creation of these Devas who preside over our 5 Jnanendriyas, our 5 Karmendriyas, and our 4 Antakaranas. So the Devas are now created. And that is what Bhattacharya was describing in Sloka 6. So once again, the organs and the Tanmatras and the Pancha Bhutas were not discussed in this sloka. We introduced it so that we understand the next slokas. Only the Devas are now created. Going on to Sloka 7.
भूमन्मानसबुद्ध्यहङ्कृतिमिळच्चित्ताख्यवृत्त्यन्वितं तच्चान्दःकरणं विभो तव बलात् सत्त्वांश एवासृजत् जातस्तैजसतो दशेन्द्रियगणस्तत्तामसांशात् पुनः तन्मात्रं नभसो मरोत्पुरपते शब्दो जनित्वद्बलात्. പ്രഭോ സർവവ്യാപിൻ, അങ്ങയുടെ ശക്തിയാൽ പ്രേരണയാൽ സാത്വിക അഹങ്കാരം തന്നെയാണ് മനസ്സ്, ബുദ്ധി, അഹങ്കാരം, ചിത്തം എന്ന വൃത്തിയോട് കൂടിയ അന്തഃകരണത്തെയും സൃഷ്ടിച്ചത്. തൈജസാഹങ്കാരത്തിൽ നിന്ന് 10 ഇന്ദ്രിയങ്ങളുടെ 5 ജ്ഞാനേന്ദ്രിയങ്ങളുടെയും 5 കർമ്മേന്ദ്രിയങ്ങളുടെയും സമൂഹം സംജാതമായി. ഗുരുവായൂരപ്പ, അങ്ങയുടെ ശക്തിയാൽ പിന്നെ ആ താമസ അഹങ്കാരത്തിൽ നിന്ന് ആകാശത്തിന്റെ തന്മാത്രമായ ശബ്ദം ജനിച്ചു.
So in this sloka, Bhattadiri is going to talk about each of the organs, the creation of each of our organs, which are our Jnanendriyas and our Karmendriyas and our Antakaranas that we just saw before. We discussed all those before. The creation of all those are now discussed in this sloka. So in the previous sloka, only the deities, the devas associated with them were created. Now Bhattadiri continues. Hey Bhuman, hey Vibho, hey Bhagavan, who is the infinite, who is the all-pervading, Bhagavan Guruvayurappa, he says, Tava balad, by thy will, by your own power, by your power, Sattvaamshaha eva, the sattvic aspect of that Ahamkara, which is Vaikārika. So if you go back, we just discussed that Vaikārika, from Vaikārika came all the deities. All the deities that we just saw, the devas were created from Vaikārika, from the Sattvika Ahamkara. Now from that same Vaikārika, from that same Sattvika Ahamkara, Bhattadiri says, next what is created? He says, Manasa Buddhi Ahangridi Milat Chittakya Vritti Anvidam. The 4 Antakaranas, that is, they are also created from the same Vaikārika. The Sattvika Ahamkara, from that Sattvika Ahamkara, Bhagavan created the 4 Antakaranas, which are mind, manas, buddhi, ego, Ahamkara, I sense, and memory, chitta, which are the 4 Antakaranas. Tat cha Antahkaranam, the inner instruments, Antakaranas, asrajat, created. They were created. So from the Vaikārika of Vaikārika Ahamkara, which is Sattvika Ahamkara, now Bhagavan creates the 4 Antakaranas, which are manas, buddhi, Ahamkara, and chitta. So once again, from Vaikārika, Bhagavan first created all the deities. All the deities that preside over our 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas, and the 4 Antakaranas. Now from that same Vaikārika, Bhagavan now creates the 4 Antakaranas, which are manas, buddhi, Ahamkara, and chitta. Then Bhattadiri continues. Hey Marut Purapade, O Lord of Guruvayur, Bhagavan Guruvayurappa, he says, Tvat balad, by thy will, by your own power, now you create Jadaha Taijasadaha, from the Rajasic aspect, from the Taijasa Ahamkara, or the Taijasa, which is the Rajasic Ahamkara, from that you create Dashakam, the group of 10 Indriyas, which are our 5 Jnanendriyas and our 5 Karmendriyas. We saw them before. The 5 Jnanendriyas are our organs of knowledge through which we take in information. They are our ears, skin, eyes, tongue, and nose. We already discussed this. Ears is for hearing, skin is for touch, eyes are for seeing, tongue is for taste, nose is for smell. So these are our 5 Jnanendriyas. They are created. Then our 5 Karmendriyas are created, which are mouth, which is for speech, hands, which are for dexterity, feet, which is for locomotion, anus, which is for excretion, and the genitals, which is for reproduction. These are our 5 Karmendriyas. So from the Taijasa aspect of Ahamkara, which is Rajasic Ahamkara, Bhagavan creates the 10 Indriyas, 5 Jnanendriyas and the 5 Karmendriyas, the organs. Now is when the organs are created. Okay. And then Bhattadiri says, Punaha, further, Tat Tamasa Amshad, from the Tamasic aspect of that Ahamkara, which is the Tamasa Ahamkara. So this was from the Rajasic aspect of Ahamkara, which is Taijasa. From the Tamasa Ahamkara, Bhagavan now creates Tanmatram Nabasaha, the subtle essence, the Tanmatram of space. Tanmatraha Nabasaha, the subtle essence of space, which we already saw what that is. The subtle essence of space is Shabdaha Ajani. Shabda is sound. Sound is the subtle element, subtle essence, the Tanmatra of space. We saw that before. That is created from the Tamasa Ahamkara, which is Tamasic Ahamkara, which is Tamasa. From that, Bhagavan creates Shabda. First, Bhagavan starts with Shabda. So Shabda, which is the Tanmatra associated with space, is now created from Tamasa. The 10 Indriyas, 5 Jnanendriyas and 5 Karmendriyas, they are created from Taijasa. From Vaikārika, Bhagavan created, as we saw, the deities, the devas, and the 4 Antakaranas. Now, Bhattadiri continues from the Tanmatras in the next sloka, which is sloka 8.
शब्दाद्व्योमतदः ससर्जिदविभो स्पर्शं ततो मारुतम् तस्माद्रूपमतो महोदचरसं तोयं च गन्धं महीम् एवं माधव पूर्वपूर्वकलनादाद्याद्यधर्मान्वितम् भूदग्राममिमं त्वमेव भगवन् പ്രാകാശയസ്താമസാത്. ശബ്ദത്തിൽ നിന്ന് ആകാശത്തെയും ആകാശത്തിൽ നിന്ന് സ്പർശത്തെയും ആ സ്പർശത്തിൽ നിന്ന് വായുവിനെയും ആ വായുവിൽ നിന്ന് രൂപത്തെയും ഈ രൂപത്തിൽ നിന്ന് തേജസ്സിനെയും പിന്നെ തേജസ്സിൽ നിന്ന് രസത്തെയും ജലം ഗന്ധം ഭൂമി എന്നിവയെയും സർവവ്യാപിൻ അങ്ങ് സൃഷ്ടിച്ചു. മാധവ, ഇങ്ങനെ മുൻപ് ഉണ്ടായവയുടെ സംബന്ധം ഹേതുവായിട്ട് ആദ്യമാദ്യമുണ്ടായ ധർമ്മങ്ങളോടുകൂടിയ ഈ ഭൂതസമൂഹത്തെ ഭഗവാനെ അവിടുന്ന് തന്നെ താമസ അഹങ്കാരത്തിൽ നിന്ന് പ്രകാശിപ്പിച്ചു.
So Bhattacharya continues in the last sloka. He said from the tamasa ahankara, which is tamasic aspect of that ahankara, but Bhagavan created Shabda, the subtle essence of space. Shabda is the first tanmatra that was created, which represents space, and the Dig Devata that we already saw for that was Dig Devatas represent the presiding deity for Shabda. We saw that before. So Bhattacharya is saying, Hey Vibho, O all-pervading Lord, Shabdad Vyoma, from the subtle essence of Shabda, that is Tanmatra Shabda that was just created, that is the first Tanmatra that Bhagavan created from the Tamasic Ahankara. This Shabda or sound, from that Tanmatra came the Buddha, Mahabhuta, which is Agasha. So Agasha, which is a Mahabhuta, one of the Pancha Bhutas, the first Pancha Bhuta was created from Shabda, from sound, which is a Tanmatra. So Tanmatra is Shabda. From the Tanmatra Shabda came Agasha, which is denoted as space or ether. And as I said, Agasha represents everything. Everything that we see around is in that space, right? And the space represents infinite possibilities that we have in this universe. That is what space represents. And from this Agasha, Bhattacharya now continues what comes next. And once again, the primary quality of Agasha is sound. Sound is the primary quality of Agasha, and the Jnanendriya for that, if you remember, the Jnanendriya for that was ears. We saw that before. Now, Bhattacharya continues, Tada Sparsham, from the element space, from Agasha that was just created, came the next subtle essence, next Tanmatra, which is Sparsha. So from Agasha came Sparsha, the next Tanmatra, which is Sparsha, which is touch. And then he says, Tadaha Marudam, from that touch came the next element, next Mahabhuta, which is air or Vayu. So from Sparsha came the next Mahabhuta, which is Vayu or air. So once again, Shabda is the first creation. From Shabda came Agasha, the Mahabhuta Agasha. The primary quality for Agasha is sound. From the space or Agasha came Sparsha, which is touch, Tanmatra of touch. And the Mahabhuta associated with that. So each of these Tanmatras gets associated with a Mahabhuta. The Mahabhuta associated with touch is Vayu. The primary quality of Vayu is touch and sound. Sound comes from the previous element. So the primary quality of Vayu is touch and the sound from the previous element. Further, Bhattacharya is continuing. Tasmad Rubam, from that Vayu. Now we have Mahabhuta of Vayu. From that Vayu came the subtle essence of form, which is Rupa. I forgot to mention for Vayu, the Jnanendriya, we already saw the Jnanendriya for Vayu is skin. So the Jnanendriya for sound, for Agasha was ears. The Jnanendriya for Vayu is our skin. And from the Vayu, is now coming the Tanmatra of Rupa. The Tanmatra of form is created. This form, this Tanmatra gets associated with Adaha Mahaha. This form gets associated with the subtle element of fire, Agni, which is Tejas. We already saw that. So Rupa gets associated with the Mahabhuta of Agni or Tejas. And Agni is representative of all types of transformation that we can see in the universe. And the primary quality of Agni is form. Form is Rupa, and also it will have touch and sound. So Agni has form, touch, and sound. Now, Bhattacharya further continues. From Agni, what happens next? Adacha rasam, and from that fire, from that Agni came the subtle essence of taste, rasa. So from Agni came the next Tanmatra, which is rasa, which is taste. And this rasa gets associated with the Mahabhuta, which is toyam cha. It gets associated with the Mahabhuta, which is up, which is water. So the Tanmatra is rasa, and it gets associated with the Mahabhuta, which is up or water. And the primary quality of water is taste, along with the other qualities, which include form, touch, and sound. Further, from up or water, what happens next? Toyam cha gandham mahim. Then from taste, then from the taste came water, and from water or jala came the next subtle essence, which is smell or gandha. The gandha is tanmatra of smell. And then from that tanmatra came the Mahabhuta, which is Prithvi Tattvam, earth or Prithvi Tattvam. As I said before, Prithvi Tattvam is all forms of matter that we see. Prithvi Tattvam was born. Sasarjida, you created, Bhagavan created all this. So, and the primary quality of Prithvi Tattvam is smell, associated with Gandham, smell, along with taste, form, touch, and sound. So once again, here Bhattacharya is describing how the Pancha Tanmatras and the Pancha Bhutas are created. The Pancha Tanmatras are Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. And the Pancha Bhutas are Agasha, Vayu, Agni, Up, and Prithvi. The Pancha Tanmatras and the Pancha Bhutas, they are created in this order by Bhagavan. And what are these? These are all Bhagavan only. So essentially, these the point to understand is that Bhagavan is getting divided. Bhagavan is in all of these. So essentially, Bhagavan is. It is not like they are all existing alone. Bhagavan is what is creating it, and Bhagavan is there in all of it. And all of the things that we see in the universe, all of us, we are all made of these tanmatras. The universe function, the foundation for the universe are these tanmatras and these Pancha Tanmatras and these Pancha Bhutas. All of us include, or all of us are made of these Tanmatras and these Pancha Bhutas. And once again, the organs we saw before, the organs associated, the Jnanendriyas associated with Agasha is ear, the Jnanendriya associated with Vayu is our skin, which is for touch. For Agni it is eyes, for Jala it is tongue, and for Prithvi Tattvam it is our nose. These are the Jnanendriyas that are associated with these Tanmatras and Panchabhutas. Now, Bhattacharya continues. Hey Madhava, O Madhava. Madhava is, Ma is Lakshmi Devi, Dava is husband, who is the husband of Lakshmi Devi. O Madhava, he says, Evam, in this manner, Purva Kalanad, because of association with the preceding product. That means, if you see here, we'll see this Adya Dharma Anvidam, having the qualities of the earlier product. So all of these are not created in silos. They are not independent. They are all dependent on the previous one, right? We saw that. So each of the 5 elements has its own specific quality as well as the quality of its predecessors. So for example, the individual quality of Agasha is sound. The individual quality of Vayu is sound and touch. Basically, the quality of Vayu is touch, but it also has sound, the one from the previous one. Similarly, as you go, every quality has its own specific quality, or every element has its own specific quality, as well as the quality of its predecessors. So that's why when you come to Prithvi, it has all the qualities. It has smell, taste, form, touch, and sound, right? So that's what Bhattacharya is saying. Adya Dharma Anvidam, having the qualities of the earlier products. So they are not created as independent. They are all dependent on the ones before, and therefore they are a group. They are a chain, right? And Bhattacharya therefore says, Bhuda Gramam Imam. So Bhagavan is creating this chain of elements, this group of elements which are known as the Pancha Bhutas and their subtle essences which are called the Pancha Tanmatras. So the creation, that's what we are discussing here, is the creation of the Pancha Bhutas and the Pancha Tanmatras. Hey Bhagavan, O Lord, he says, Tvameva, thou alone, you alone, you thyself, Pragashaya did bring this into existence. Bhagavan is the one who is shining in each of these. They are not independent, they are all Bhagavan shining in different forms. Tamasat. And how did Bhagavan create it? He created it from the Tamasa Ahamkara. Okay, so just to summarize, from the Sattvika Ahamkara, first Bhagavan created the deities, the devas, for our Jnanendriyas, for Karmendriyas, and our Antakaranas. The deities were created. Then from the same Sattvika Ahamkara, Bhagavan created the 4 Antakaranas. From the Rajasic aspect of the Ahamkara, Bhagavan created the 5 Jnanendriyas, the organs, 5 Jnanendriyas and 5 Karmendriyas. From the Tamasic aspect of the Ahamkara, Bhagavan created the Pancha Tanmatras and the Pancha Bhutas. And we need to understand that, as I said before, this is something we discussed in our previous session. We know that gold is whatever we see as ornaments, right? Whatever we see as ornaments, gold ornaments, they are nothing but gold. The subtle essence in all of that is gold. We will see them in different forms. You'll see them as chain, you'll see them as necklaces and all that, but what is in there is basically gold, right? So just like that, whatever we see here as different forms, they are all different forms, but they are nothing but Bhagavan only, Narayana only. So what is Bhagavan is illuminating in each of these. That is the point mentioned here. It is Bhagavan who is bringing them into existence, and he is there in each of these. And it is also needs to be understood that here Bhattathiri is carefully addressing the term Madhava, husband of Lakshmi Devi. Why? Because all of this represents the universe. The universe is represented by Lakshmi Devi, and the Lakshmi Devi is not at all different from Bhagavan. Lakshmi Devi is Bhagavan only. So that's why Bhattathiri is bringing up the name of Lakshmi Devi here as the husband of Lakshmi Devi. So all of this represents Lakshmi Devi, and that is nothing but Bhagavan only. The primary source, the starting point of that is Bhagavan, and Bhagavan is radiating in everything as Lakshmi Devi, and that is Narayana only. So that is the key point that we need to understand, that it is Bhagavan reflecting everywhere in different forms. And that is the key message of this Dashakam also. With that, we go to slogan number 9.
एते भूतगणास्तदेन्द्रियगणा देवाश्च जाता पृथङ् नो शेकुर्भुवनाण्डनिर्मितिविधौ देवैरमीभिस्तदा त्वं नानाविधसूक्तिभिर्नुदगुणस्तत्त्वान्यमून्याविशन् चेष्टाशक्तिमुदीर्यतानि घटयन् हैरण्यमण्डं व्यधाः ഈ ഉത്പന്നങ്ങളായ ഭൂതസമൂഹങ്ങളും അപ്രകാരം ഈ ഉത്പന്നങ്ങളായ ഇന്ദ്രിയ സമൂഹങ്ങളും ദേവന്മാരും ബ്രഹ്മാണ്ടത്തെ സൃഷ്ടിക്കുക എന്ന കാര്യത്തിൽ വെവ്വേറെ കഴിവുള്ളവയായില്ല. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ദേവന്മാരാൽ പലതരത്തിലുമുള്ള സൂക്തികളെ കൊണ്ട് പുകഴ്ത്തപ്പെട്ട ഗുണങ്ങളോടുകൂടിയ അവിടുന്ന് ഈ ഭൂതാദി തത്വങ്ങളിലേക്ക് കടന്നുകൂടിയിട്ട് ചേഷ്ടിക്കുവാനുള്ള ശക്തിയെ ഉണർത്തിവിട്ട് അവയെ ഇണക്കിയിട്ട് ഹിരൺമയമായ സ്വർണമയമായ അണ്ഡത്തെ നിർമ്മിച്ചു.
So Bhattathiri next continues on how this he's talking about the creation of the Brahmanda in this sloka. That is the universe that we see around. That is what Bhattathiri is now saying. So he says, Ede Bhuda Ganaha. So Bhagavan just now created these elements, the Pancha Bhutas, the Pancha Tanmatras, he just created them. So these elements that were just created, the Pancha Bhutas, Tada Indriya Ganaha, and also the organs, the associated organs with these Pancha Bhutas, which are the subtle organs of knowledge, which are our Jnanendriyas, and the organs of action, which are our Karmendriyas. So we just saw that. So Ede Bhuda Ganaha, the Pancha Bhutas that you just created, and also the Indriyas, Indriya Ganaha, the subtle organs that you just created. and also Devacha and their presiding deities. Right? Bhagavan started off with the deities and their presiding deities, that everything that you just created, Jadaha, which had come into existence. So let's revisit what all Bhagavan just created. He started off first with the presiding deities, the gods or devas. Then he created the four Antakaranas, Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahamkara, the four Antakarana. Then he created the Pancha Jnanendriyas. Then he created the Pancha Karmendriyas. Then he created the Pancha Tanmatras and Pancha Bhutas in the order that we just said, right? Now, if you see one thing to remember here is Pancha Bhuta, they are 5. Pancha Tanmatra, they are 5. Pancha Karmendriyas are 5. Pancha Jnanendriyas are 5. The total they make 20. And the 4 Antakaranas are 4. So total is 24. So Bhagavan created 24, almost 24 items here. It is kind of important to remember this number because we will see this when we go to Kabilobadesham later, where in Sankhya Yogam, these 24 elements are discussed later. So that's why it is important to remember this. And also Bhagavan created the presiding devas for each of these. Okay. So now Bhattathiri says, now all of them were created. Prudak no Sheguhu. However, even though they were created, they were not capable by themselves. They did not have any power by themselves. Alone, they do not have any power. So they were created, but they were not capable by themselves. Bhuvan anda nirmidi vidau, in creating this Brahmanda. So they did not have their own power to create this Brahmanda. The Brahmanda that we see, the universe that we see, even though these devas and the organs and the Panchabhutas and the Pancha Tanmatras and all created, alone they didn't have any power in this existence, in this world. So what happened next? Devaihi Amibihi Tada. Therefore, these presiding gods, the presiding deities that were created, these deities, these devas, they Tvam Nanavida Suktibihi Nuda Gunaha. They sung your excellences. Bhagavan, Guruvayurappa, they all came together and they sung your excellences by means of various hymns. So they started on meditating and praising Narayana, Bhagavan, Guruvayurappa. They started, chanting his names. So then Bhagavan Tattvani Amuni Avishan. Then Bhagavan, what Bhagavan did is, then Bhagavan entered into each of these categories. Bhagavan then entered into each of these categories that he just created. Earlier they were created. Now Bhagavan is entering into it. Okay, Bhagavan entered into these categories. Cheshta Shaktim Udirya, and he activated them. So Bhagavan enters into the Panchabhutas, Pancha Tanmatras, Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Jnanendriyas, Antakaranas. He enters there and he now activates them. And then what he does? Tani Dhadayan, and then combines them. So he enters there, activates them and combines them to create Hiranya Andam. He enters there and combines them to create the Hiranya Andam, which is the golden egg, which is the potential universe. This is the universe that we see around. So Bhagavan now creates this golden egg or the Hiranya Andam, which is the universe, Vyadaha, that is now created. We already saw the Brahmanda in our Dashakam 4. If you remember, we saw the layers of Brahmanda and the different logas of Brahmanda in Dashakam 4. Now that here Bhattathiri is discussing how that Brahmanda is created. And we saw in Dashakam 4 that there are infinite such Brahmandas that Bhagavan creates. And that is something we saw in Dashakam 4. Now Bhattathiri continues this in Sloka 10.
Andam tat खलु पूर्वसृष्टसलिले तिष्ठत्सहस्रं समा निर्भिन्दन्न कृताश्चतुर्दश जगद्रूपं विराढाह्वयम् साहस्रैकरपादमूर्धनिवहैर्निःशेषजीवात्मको निर्भातोऽसि मरुत्पुराधिपसमां त्रायस्व സർവാമയാത്. ആദ്യ സൃഷ്ടിയായ കാരണജലത്തിൽ 1000 സംവത്സരം മുഴുവനും അങ്ങനെ കിടന്ന ആ അണ്ഡത്തെ തന്നെ അവിടുന്ന് നിശേഷം വിഭജിച്ച് 14 ഭുവനങ്ങളായിട്ടുള്ളതും വിരാട് എന്ന പേരുള്ളതുമാക്കി തീർത്തു. സമസ്ത ജീവികളുമായി തീർന്ന് വിരാട് രൂപനായിട്ട് അവിടുന്ന് ആയിരക്കണക്കിന് കൈകാലുകളും ശിരസ്സുകളും ഉള്ളവനായിട്ട് നന്നായി വിളങ്ങി. ഗുരുവായൂരപ്പ, അപ്രകാരമുള്ള അവിടുന്ന് എന്നെ എല്ലാ രോഗങ്ങളിൽ നിന്നും രക്ഷിച്ചരുളയണമേ.
Yeah. So Bhattadiri now continues. This is our last sloga of Dashakam 5, and this is very, this sloga is very divine because Bhattadiri is talking about Bhagavan's Virat Swarupam. So this sloga is very important in that sense. So Bhattadiri says, Andam Tat Kalu, that Brahmanda that was just created, that Brahmanda that Bhagavan created. So once again, Bhagavan entered into all those elements that he created, and then he activated them, he combined them to form this Brahmanda, the universe. That Andam, Tat Kalu, that Brahmanda, Purva Srishta Salile, that Brahmanda now, it remained in the already created cosmic water. So the first creation that happened is the Karana Jalam. Karana Jalam is the cosmic water or the primordial ocean, and it is said that Bhagavan rests on that Karana Jalam, right? This Karana Jalam is the first creation, and from that is everything that we see around is created from that. So, and this Karana Jalam is not the up or the Jala Tattvam that we just saw. It is not associated with that up or Jala Tattvam, one of the Tanmatras. That's not the Karana Jalam. Karana Jalam is the first creation. It is called the cosmic waters. So this Andam that was created, that Andam is resting. It is in that Karana Jalam, and it stays in that Karana Jalam. Bhattadiri says, Sahasram Samaha, for 1,000 years. For 1,000 years, this Andam rests in that Karana Jalam, is in that Karana Jalam. This is a period of tabas for Bhagavan. Bhagavan is essentially doing a tabas during this period. So essentially, Bhagavan enters into the Andam, and this Andam, Bhagavan is essentially doing a tabas of 1,000 years. So the Andam remains in like that, latent for that 1,000 years in that Karana Jalam. Adishtat remained. So for 1,000 years, this Andam rests in the Karana Jalam, and this is a period of tabas for Bhagavan. Now, Bhattadiri says, Nirbindan Chadurdasha Jagat Rupam. Now what happens after that 1,000 years, after that tabas, Bhagavan breaks it open. Bhagavan breaks the Andam open, that is, Bhagavan enters into it, and he then divides that into Chadurdasha Jagat Rupam in the form of 14 worlds. He divides that Andam into 14 logas, 14 worlds. These 14 worlds, we have discussed it in Dashakam 4. They are, and we'll see this again in next Dashakam, which are Tabologa, Janaloga, Maharloga, Swargaloga, Bhuvarloga, Bhuloga, then the lower logas, which are Adala, Vidala, Sudala, Taladala, Mahatala, Rasadala, and Padala. These are the 14 logas. So Bhagavan divides this Andam into these 14 worlds, 14 logas. And what is this? This Brahmandam is essentially representative of the external world, what we see as the external universe. It is also representative of our internal world also. So all these logas are there inside us as well. It is representative of our level of consciousness, our level of awareness as well. And so I'm not going into the details. We have kind of discussed it before. So Bhagavan creates this Brahmanda and he divides it into these 14 worlds. And what we need to understand is that these 14 worlds are essentially Bhagavan only. It is Bhagavan, Narayana, Guruvayurappa is essentially divided into these 14 worlds. That's the point to understand. So Bhagavan is there in these 14 worlds. And something that we need to understand is that whatever be our situation, that is, we in terms of consciousness, in terms of our awareness, we need to understand that we can associate each of these logas with our awareness as well, and our situations in life as well. All of that is coming from Bhagavan. All the experiences that we have in this Bhuloga, Bhuvarloga, Swargaloga, Maharloga, Janaloga, Tabologa, they are all experiences from Bhagavan only. That is the key point, and that is why this is called the Virat Swarupa. He creates this Brahmanda into 14 worlds, and that is the Viradahvayam, known as the Virat Swarupa, which is the cosmic form of Bhagavan. And essentially the point in this Dashakam is this Virat Swarupam is the creation of this universe, which is Bhagavan's Swarupam, which is the Virat Swarupam. And the point is that whatever we see around as the universe, all the life beings, all the beings, everything, living and non-living, all the experiences that we obtain in this world, they are all coming from Bhagavan only. That is the key message that is hidden in this sloka. Viradahvayam, known as Virat Swarupa, Bhagavan's cosmic form, Agrataha, thou did make it. So Bhagavan made this Virat Rupam, and Bhagavan is existing in all of these worlds. The 14 worlds of the Brahmanda, in all of those 14 worlds, Bhagavan is there. And they represent Bhagavan's body only. And how is he reflecting here? Now Bhattathiri says how Bhagavan is shining in these 14 worlds. He is shining with thousands of hands, feet and heads. He says, Sahasraihi Karapada Murda Nivahaihi. That is, in this Brahmanda, Bhagavan is reflecting as in this Brahmanda in his Virat Swarupam with thousands of hands, feet and head. So thousands means infinite. That means all of this, whatever we see around is this Bhagavan. So the essential message of this sloga and this representation is that whatever we see around, all the beings, all the experiences, whatever we see around is this Bhagavan only. That is why it said everything that we see is Bhagavan, and he's represented by this Sahasraihi Karapada Murda Nivahaihi with thousands of hands, feet and heads. And then Bhattathiri says, Nishesha Jivatmagaha, and he is the life force. This Bhagavan, who is this Virat Swarupam, is the life force of all the beings that we can think of in this 14 worlds. He is the life force. He is in those beings. He is in the beings as Samashti, the total life form of all beings. Remember, we said what is Samashti? Samashti is the wholeness. It is not the individual. It is the representation of everything as a whole. That is Bhagavan. That Samashti Bhavana, the Samashti Jivan is represented by Bhagavan's Virat Swarupam. So the Jivatma of the universe and all of its beings is this Bhagavan only, as Bhagavan represented as the Virat Swarupam. Nirbadaha Asi, thou did shine. You are shining. Bhagavan Guruvayurappan is shining in this form, in every being, in this Brahmanda. That is the key message from this sloka. Now Bhattathiri now makes a very good transition. So Bhattathiri was talking about the Brahmandam and how Bhagavan is reflecting in the Brahmandam, or Bhagavan itself is the Brahmandam in this form. Now Bhattathiri now transitions and connects this to our Guruvayurappan. He says that Virat Swarupam is also what I see in front of me at Guruvayur, that essentially that Virat Swarupam is the Guruvayurappan that I'm seeing. You are that. So he says, Hey Marut Puradiva, O Lord of Guruvayur. And this Bhagavan, who is the Virat Swarupam, who is carrying this entire Brahmanda, he is the same Bhagavan who is able to carry my pain and my ailments as well. Since it is so easy for Bhagavan to create this Brahmanda, it would definitely be so easy for Bhagavan to remove all my ailments, right? So the prayer that Bhagavan Bhattathiri is making to Guruvayurappan is that, Hey Marut Puradiba, O Lord of Guruvayur, who is now shining as the Virat Swarupa in this Brahmanda, Samam Trayaswa, that thou of such nature, the Bhagavan who is of such nature, who is the Virat Swarupa of the Brahmanda, please protect me, Sarva Amayat, from all my ailments. So the point to understand is that the Virat Bhagavan, Guruvayurappan, who is the Virat Swarupa of the universe, he is the same Bhagavan who can help us from our day-to-day ailments as well. So that is where we have to surrender. So that surrender is what Bhattathiri is showing in this last sloga of Dashakam 5. So to end, we in this Dashakam, Bhattathiri is talking about the creation process, and Bhattathiri is emphasizing that the key message that we need to take away from this Dashakam is that every experience and every being, everything that we see around is nothing but this Virat Swarupam of Guruvayurappan, Bhagavan only, and that is the Narayana in us, and that is a Narayana that is there everywhere, and that Narayana is what Bhattathiri is witnessing at Guruvayur. So with that, we end our 5th Dashakam. We will continue from the 6th Dashakam in our next session. So before we end, Anju and I would like to dedicate this session to our Ponnu Guruvayurappan's lotus feet. If there were any mistakes, we apologize to Bhagavan and to everyone. Narayana Agila Guru Bhagavan Namaste Guruvayurappa.